Okay, the other part was, how did I come to my beliefs? Well, I was rejecting Roman Catholicism for the wrong reasons, and Islam for the right reasons, Sunni Islam. I looked at the character and the sayings and the teachings of Muhammad, and they were pretty much the opposite of Christ and Paul. Turn the other cheek, love your enemy. Even Augustine, his idea of just war was not the same as jihad. Jihad, there were night raids. I mean, which you could say really wasn't jihad. They were just robbing people. I mean, it was not only stuff in the Quran that was blood-curdling, besides sisters and nieces, but it was like pornographic and murderous. I just whoa. And then since it's Sunni, Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, yikes. That's they basically take Sahih Bukhari over the Quran, because there's many places in the Quran that contradict Orthodox Islam. Through history, basically. I took a Eastern religions class. I had to read the Bhagavad Gita, the Buddhist scriptures, studied Taoism. I like Tao. I actually was referring to God, or the Logos, as the Tao. The closest thing to our view of God is the Tao. It's not God, it's the God beyond gods. It's He who is, the existing one. And I find out Hero Monk Damascene, like 100 years ago, wrote Christ the Mystical Tao. But I came to Orthodoxy through studying history and choosing or basically being drawn to ancient worship, unchanged since the 300s, as well as the fact that it wasn't ridiculous like a Bible-based church, you know. I mean, I'd ask, like, how does that make sense? A Bible-based church. The church existed 300 to 500 years before the New Testament was compiled, and certainly the church wrote the books of the New Testament, so how can people who were non-Christians pick up a Bible, read it, and then form a church? That's ridiculous. There was only one church for the first 1,000 years. And then you had two. You had the Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox, and then you had all these break-offs and schisms and people saying Scripture alone, which is ridiculous when you read any part of early Christianity. But yeah, it was, I came to my beliefs basically through things like morality, rejection of hell, rejection of heaven. By hell, I mean the Western idea of hell. We get it from basically medieval Catholic views, as well as combining Sheol, Tartaros, Gehenna, and Hades, and lumping it under one word, hell, the English word hell, which was the name of a Nordic goddess. I probably need to make a part 2 of how I came to my beliefs. But yeah, it was after leaving Islam, which you don't really actually leave Islam. I'm just considered worthy of beheading now. It was my beliefs are you know, I don't know how to explain it. God is only talked about in negatives: the unknowable, unseeable, unthinkable, unimaginable. you know, totally against creationism. I believe in documentary hypothesis. I think King David is an evil son of a bitch, usurper. I think it's obvious in the text. That's why I get frustrated when people say, "Oh, these are fairy tales." No, they aren't. You know, they're court chronicles with propaganda in them, but they're not fairy tales. Especially Judges through Kings is not. Those events actually happened. And as for Jesus, historically, if I were to say, you know, use a critical historical method, I'd say it's obvious that he was a Samaritan, a natural-born son of Joseph and Mary, and that he was an apocalyptic preacher that got crucified, that never claimed to be the Son of God or the Messiah. Now, that being said, devotionally, I say other things. I wouldn't devotionally. I affirm, you know, the Nicene Creed, right? But remember, I was a hardcore atheist, anti-theist, and then saw the man's need for religion, basically, or that it was useful, or that it was going to be around no matter what in us, and started practicing the rituals and everything again. And then the theism popped back in. And theism, I can't exactly explain it. This is why I despise... I have a video explaining the term fundy atheist or fundamentalist atheist. I don't like that term myself, and I try never to use it. But of the evangelical fundamentalist Protestants who go one God less, they're not any more educated, and they still proselytize. I don't know if you could ever get somebody to believe in God or not. Again, it may be something that you're born with. You probably lose belief in God, or call that thing something else, and be able to mock, you know, this word God. But then again, I really don't believe in God. I believe in the mystical Tao, or the existing one, whatever that is, the God beyond God. There's no guy up in the sky type of thing. An afterlife, yeah, sure. I mean, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I mean, for morality and everything, it doesn't matter. The Orthodox view of heaven, hell, and God, I should probably do a video on that. It would probably explain a lot more. And the thing is that the Orthodox view of heaven and hell and God actually lined up perfectly with stuff that was in the New Testament. And I'm like, oh wow, you guys didn't have to make this up. This is what these people already believed, and they wrote it in here. But the Bible-based people are working backwards. They're taking a book which their community didn't write or edit or compile, and then they're trying to work backwards from it. That's why you get these myriad of beliefs that make no sense. You get things like the rapture and creationism, you know, super literal on creationism, even though there's obviously two creation accounts right next to each other, chapter 1 and chapter 2 basically of Genesis. And then but then when it comes to things like baptism, which it's clear that it's, you know, an active mystery of God, they say it's an outward sign of an inward change, which that idea not only could not be found in Scripture, but is opposite of what is preached in the New Testament. I mean, it's weird to me. So Orthodoxy was, I mean, I found the parish because I was tripping, and I went in and I thought it was cool. The hymns and how everything looked was cool, but that's how I came to believe my beliefs. But yeah, I've sporadically gone back and researched Islam, and it's darker and darker and darker and darker. I mean, I shudder to think the things that I said as a teenager at Islamic Foundation. I don't know that I really believe that what I would be, I mean, would I have beheaded somebody? there is major differences between religions. Not all religions are equal, or equally bad, or equally good. You know, you had the Aztecs who ripped people's hearts out. So, you know, they would appease the sun and chop people's heads off. You had the Vikings that would attack defenseless people and just murder them, and that was fine. You had the Thuggee cult of Kali. And then you have groups like the Jains and the Amish and the Eastern Orthodox and the Zoroastrians. Zoroastrianism, Eastern Orthodoxy, and Taoism, I think are three, like the three that I actually really, you know, have respect for. But I also have respect for private, very traditional Roman Catholicism. Although I cannot stand the Pope or much or most of Roman Catholic theology. That's kind of how I came to believe what I believe. Hope that answers the question. Peace to you, and thank you again.